Okay, next up, I'm going to install the brakes. Type of brakes I'm using is the type of brakes that are designed for this type of bike are linear pull brakes. Comes in two pieces. You have a right side and a left side on the back. That's the way they're set up. Right side, left side. And they're actually quite simple. What you do first is you have to remove this protective cap. This cap keeps the post here from getting paint on it during the painting process of the frame, because if this got paint on it, then the brake would not fit through this hole right here, this bushing. And it also protects the threads. So like always, I've already pre-greased this part because we want this to move freely on it, and then if I ever have to take it off, it needs to be able to come off easily. On these type of brakes, there's a little post right here, a little pin, and that pin fits. There are 3 holes in this fitting right here, and that serves as an anchor point for the spring that allows the brake to pop back open when you release the lever. And what I do is I always put this pin, when I'm installing the brakes for the first time, I put it in the middle hole and then check the tension, see if it's proper. If it's not, then I can change it. Another thing to note is there's spacers on this brake shoe here, brake pad, and there's a thin one, there's a thin bushing here and a thick one here. Out of the box they were switched, and that put this brake pad too close to the rim, so I had to switch those to pull the brake pad closer to the arm so it'd be farther away from the rim so I could get proper adjustment. Another thing to note is the direction of the brake pad itself. You'll notice there's a curve to it. It curves down on the ends, and that matches the curve of the rim, so you want to make sure you have it in that position. So really pretty easy. Just put it on there like that. Make sure that pin goes in that middle hole, and then check the tension. As you can see, I just let go and it pops out. So that's about right. So then you take the bolt and screw it into the top of the post. Now, as you can see, there's blue Loctite on here, and that keeps the screw from backing out. This is one of the few places on a bike where you don't want to apply grease to the threads, because you don't want these backing out, because if they came out, this could come off and you'd have no brakes. So it's pretty easy. You just spin it in there like that, and it'll go down with hand pressure up to where the blue Loctite is. Then you'll have to use an Allen wrench to get that tightened down the rest of the way. And it's the same installation on both sides. So this side's installed. I'll tighten this down and install the other one, and we'll be ready to move on to the brake cable. Okay, next up I am going to install the brake cable. Here it is all coiled up, and I'll uncoil it here in a minute. But what I need to do first is I need to cut the brake cable housing, the outer black part of the cable, because I need a piece to go from here, loop around to this point, and then I need a short piece of housing from here around to here so the cable can come through for the brakes. Okay, so I'm not going to get into showing you how to do all that, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that, get it all ready, and then show you how it installs. Okay, now I've got my brake cable cut. I've got a short piece to go back here between this and the brake, and then I have this longer piece here that will go from here, loop around down to here. Now they make places like Park Tools, who make bicycle related tools, they make special cutters for cable and for the cable housing. Now I have always used and never had any problems with just a really good pair, really sharp, ground really well on the cutting edge, to where it's really flat. Never had a problem cutting cable or cutting cable housing. Some people may cringe at it, but I've never seen the need to spend the amount for the tool because they are a little more expensive than I want to spend when I can do it with just regular wire cutters or side cutters, some diagonal pliers, whatever people call them, different things. So anyway, what you want to do is make sure whenever you cut it that the inner housing, there's a plastic liner inside of this cable housing. You want to make sure that that is opened up really well, okay, so the brake cable slides in easily. And you can accomplish that once you cut it. Just use a pencil, a nice sharp pencil, and then just kind of poke it down inside of that liner and twirl it around a little bit, and it'll make it nice and open. Then once you have your bits of cable cut, you want to take some of these ferrules, I guess they're called, cable housing ends or something, and they slide over the top, or they slide over the end, and give it a real nice flush into it. And then whenever they're installed into their appropriate spot, it gives it a little better anchor point as well. So you just want to make sure those are all installed on both ends of both your cables, and then make sure that your cable, you have a good cable. This is all new stuff. Make sure you have a good cable, and when you cut the end on the cable, make sure that it's really flat. Okay, and again, I did that with my handy dandy wire cutters there, and it came out just fine. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this cable and liner together, and then I will attempt to show you how it's routed through the bike. Okay, now we are ready to start installing the cable. And the first part of the cable we're going to install is the actual end of the cable and the top part of the cable housing, which is this length of cable housing here, which will get us from here down to the first anchor point on the frame. Now I've got the lever twisted up like this for illustration purposes so you can see what's going on. Once I have it all installed, I'll swing it back down into position. But you have to have everything lined up. You've got the hole where the end of the cable goes. There's a slot, so the cable will go this way. And there's a slot cut in the cable here, a slot in the cable mount, or the brake lever mount, and then a barrel adjuster. The barrel adjuster also has a slot cut in it, as well as the barrel adjuster lock nut. This barrel adjuster allows you to, as your brake cable stretches, you twist this out and it applies more tension to the cable without having to take any parts apart on the brake itself. So you want to make sure all of that is lined up. Then what you want to do is you want to make sure you have a little bit of extra cable sticking out like that. That installs there, slides down through all that slot, and then pushes up snug into the barrel adjuster. Once you have that in place, then you can move on to the lower portion. Okay, now that the upper part of the brake cable has been installed onto the lever, we want to install the bottom part of that top housing onto the frame right here. This fitting right here has a slot cut in the bottom. So what you do, you slide the cable through the slot, push that into place there, and that completes the upper part of the housing for the brake cable. That is installed and ready to go. Now we can move on to the back. Okay, next we want to install the back part of the cable housing. Cable housing is already on the cable. Just like the front, there's a slot cut underneath this fitting. Slide that up into the slot, push the cable housing forward, and you have the back part of the cable housing in place. Now you need to install this elbow fitting looking thing. The way that works is the cable fits down inside of there, and you need to make sure you put it the right direction. You want this, the cable comes out there, cable goes in this side. Just push it in place like that. Then you want to make sure that the housing slides all the way inside of here till it stops. Then from there, this part here fits into this part of the top of the brake arm. Fits in like that. Okay, that's now in position. Now you want to take this dust cover, It's a little accordion dust cover. What that does is help keeps dust from getting into the inside of the brake cable. So you just insert it through there like that. It slides all the way down and fits over the end of that part there. Then from there we can attach to the cable lock bolt. And I'll flip the bike around so I can show you how to do that. Okay, now we're ready to lock the cable into place. This is the locking bolt right here. It's got a little fitting, little ears on it that help hold the cable in place. So what you do is you take your cable, slide it through the front like that. Okay, make sure all of your cable parts have stayed in place. Kind of squeeze the brakes together like that, and then you'll tighten this nut down, or this bolt. Tighten this bolt down with your Allen wrench, and it will clamp the cable securely in place, keep it all together. Now I'll have to do some adjustments and I'll explain those later, but right now that's the way it looks. I'll adjust the brake shoes next. Okay, now I have the cable has been cut off, ferrule crimped in place. Bend it back, that way you don't catch your shoe on it. I flip mine right underneath the edge of this anchor point for the spring. That way it keeps tucked up and out of the way. And as you can see, the wheel rolls, brakes work. So the brakes have now been installed. Now I'm going to move on to the seat and seat post.